Well, hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, a tool review. Well, it's been quite a while since I've done a tool review, and I thought that here on Alternative Tuesdays I would bring one to you today. And what we're going to be looking at is the Ridgid Gen 5 battery operated trim router. Now, I've had this router for quite some time and have had a really good opportunity to put it through its paces. So you're going to hear all of my opinions on this tool today, and hopefully, those of you who are watching this show, it will help you make a decision as to whether or not this is the tool for you. Well, quite some time ago, I did a video on routers and their options and a buyer's guide, basically. And at the time, I was not aware of a battery-operated router. And one of the viewers actually pointed out that this one was available, and I was not aware of that. And this is the Ridgid R86044. Now, this is an 18-volt router, and it has a 1/4-inch collet. No half-inch, and I wouldn't expect it from a trim router, nor would I expect it from a battery-operated. But what does it come with when you purchase this router? Well, this model for me was purchased as a tool only. So this did not come with it. You can forget about the battery. I'm not sure if it comes in a package that includes the battery or not, but the one that I bought was tool only. So it comes with the router body, or the router base, I should say, and it comes with the router motor. It also comes with two separate bases, one being clear plexi square and the other one being a clear plexi round base. It also comes with a Ridgid 1/4-inch roundover bit. Obviously, it comes with a wrench to tighten up the collet, and as well, it comes with this edge guide. So how does this whole thing fare as far as a router goes? So we'll start off with bit changes, and like I said, this one is a 1/4-inch collet, and for the bit changes, it's a pretty typical system, whereas there is a button here with a steel pin that you depress, and it will line up with a hole in the router shaft. And then from there, using your wrench, you just loosen the collet and of course remove the bit. It's a pretty standard system, and it's tried and true. It's on a lot of routers, and it works really well. The single tool bit removal is nice, as opposed to having to use the double wrench system. So all in all, changing bits has been really easy with this, and I've had absolutely no problems. Placing the motor into the router base is a fairly simple system. It's just put it in place, line it up, depress our retainer here, and the motor can just slide into place wherever you want it. Once you get the height adjustment that you want, clamp it down and you're good to go. That brings us here to this depth scale that they have on this router. I have to say, it's just a sticker, so how reliable is it? I really don't know. I don't hold too much faith in depth scales on any tool, but really, for that reason, I don't use them. So how accurate is this? Well, it's a sticker, guys, so they could be put on in different spots. What's to say that they're all aligned exactly? What's to say that your distance sticking out of the collet here is the same every time? I don't put too much faith in them, and therefore I don't use them, and therefore I can't really make a comment on it. But what I can make a comment on is this micro adjust here that they have at the top of the router. And it's basically a threaded rod connected to this dial up here, which works in conjunction with your retainer clip. And just by turning it here, you can raise it just a tiny little bit with each increment. And I have to say that this thing works flawlessly. It's very easy to use, it's very smooth, and I just absolutely love how it's kind of like a micro adjustment. And it's one of the things that Ridgid got right with this router, as it's just a joy to use. It really is. Quick and easy adjustments, and once you get it in the place that you want, you just snap that down and you're good to go. Now the router also has this little plexi dust shield. And what that does is it goes with the rotation of the motor, and it allows the chips to be shot out through this little port. How does it work? Well, honestly, it does a pretty good job in keeping the dust out of this area so you can see what you're routing. So it does in fact blow the dust out through that port. However, where is it blowing it? It's blowing it all over the shop. So although this works well, don't consider this dust collection, because it sure as heck is not. Well, another feature of this router is its edge guide. And I honestly have to say that I have yet to see an edge guide provided with a router that I liked until now. This one here really does fit well. And on smaller tools, sometimes the accessories that they come with can be quite flimsy and quite cheesy feeling, and that is why I've never really found one that I liked. However, much like their depth control, Ridgid has their edge guide done right this time. Solid steel bars that screw in with a threaded end into the router base itself, and then a dead solid edge guide that aligns to where you want it, tightens securely on this bar, and honestly, this thing is dead solid. It truly is. I was very excited about it, very pleased with it, because it is so solid and it works really well. You can get a great edge guide along your piece, great support, holes here for an auxiliary fence if you wanted extra support, but really this bracket gives you just plenty. So as far as the edge guide goes, like I said, Ridgid got this one right, and it's very, very solid and feels very secure when you're using it. Well, how does this router feel while you're using it? And you know, honestly, when you snap that battery pack in there, I have to be honest here and say this is very top heavy. That battery adds a ton of weight to this thing, and it is quite top heavy. However, the base is sufficient enough on it that it gives you good support and makes it easy to use. And although this is a little awkward at first with it being so top heavy, and it did take me a bit to get used to, once you get used to that top heavy nature, you find that you compensate for that and it provides no problems at all. It works quite well. So although it's top heavy, I don't really see another solution or a different way that Ridgid could have done this. It's really the only option for where to put the battery, I think, in order to make the bottom still comfortable enough to hold. So now with that being said, what we have on this router is a rubber textured area right here just underneath the battery and the speed control, and what that is your grip, and it is quite comfortable. I like the way that they've sort of integrated it into the bottom of the router, and the way that it sits here on your palm, or sorry, on the back of your hand here, just like that, that compensates for that top heavy nature. Now you have a support like a bracket, so it makes it quite easy to use, and that is what helps with getting used to this top heavy nature. So the grips on this are quite nice. Over the time that I've had this router, I've tried both of the bases that it comes with, both the round and the square. Do I prefer one over the other? I don't think so, but I have things about them that I like on both. I like the fact that on the square base, when you're using a trim router, I really like to have my fingers down here on the corners of the base so that I'm able to get some good control there when I'm using it, and it helps me guide the router. With the round base, it's pretty much the same diameter as the casting of this section. So there isn't much material there to be able to support without getting yourself too close to this opening. That kind of concerns me a bit. However, I do like how this works for streamlining and getting in closer without the corners of the square base getting in my way. So, do I have a favorite? No, not really. They're both great quality, quite thick on the plexi. They're clear so you can see what you're doing, and fit and finish on both is great. I like them both for different reasons, so no problems with either one of the bases that it comes with. Well, the collet wrench that it's supplied with, I would like to see it a little thicker metal. Although I can't bend it or flex it, it's still quite rigid. No pun intended. But I'd like to see it a little thicker. Does it do the job? 100%. And it does it quite well. It's just my personal preference that I like a beefier wrench for collets. But it does do a great job. Well, one of the things that I like about this router, and it seems to be a standard on most tools today, is this. And that would be the LED lighting. The Ridgid cordless router is no different. It provides an LED work light inside the routing area, which illuminates the entire section quite nicely. The bases are nice and clear. They're clear plexi so you can see your work, and that LED light that's in there does a fantastic job of illuminating it. So following a template or that sort of thing with this router is easy peasy and nice and bright and easy to see. Now this router is variable speed. I'm not sure of the specs of it as far as its RPM rating for the lowest and the top. I'll try to get that information before this video airs so that I can add it. But it has a nice adjustment here that is solid. It's not just a loose wheel. It actually has incremental clicks that you can click into in order to get your speed that you want. So there's no chance of that thing vibrating and spinning and changing your speed. It's dead solid on what you want. Noise levels, it's a router. Of course it's going to be loud. And you can hear, let me just flick this on. It's average for your trim router. It's not deafening. However, I would still recommend, as always, 100% PPE and get some hearing protection, because even though it's not screamingly loud, it still is above the decibels that your ears should be exposed to. So while I'm chatting about turning it on and all of that stuff, I want to talk about the on-off switch. And honestly, I understand why they did what they did, and the router switch is not one that you can accidentally flick on or off. And I get it, because the battery on here, you have the potential to have power at all times if you don't take your battery off. Just with the router sitting there, if you bump the switch. So it's a physical connection that you actually have to hook your thumb under and pull it out in order to turn the router on. I get it. I get why they did that. It's a safety feature. However, Look where it is. It's over here. If I was right-handed, it would be right here where I could just take it with my left hand, flick it on, and away I go. But I'm not. I'm left-handed. So I hold the router here with my left hand, and I actually have to flip it right around like this to turn it on, as opposed to just reaching here and pulling it to flick it on. So I don't really like the fact that the switch is only in one location. I would have liked to see the ability for a left-handed person to use it comfortably as well. Now, that's not to say that once the router is on, it's not comfortable to use. It's just quite awkward to get at this switch for me being a lefty. So I would have liked to see dual switches. I would have liked to see it a little less awkward to pull out, but I like the fact that it's got that safety feature where I'm not going to accidentally turn it on. So there you go. If you're a left-handed guy, it's a little awkward turning it on and off. Well, the next thing I'd like to touch on is how much the tool draws. In other words, how long does a battery last? I'm not exactly sure. I use it till it dies and then I change the battery. I've never really paid much attention. I do have more than one battery, so for me it's not an issue. But why don't we, even though it'll be under no load, why don't we take this router, put a fresh battery in it, fully charged, let's turn it on and time it with no load and see how long it takes to kill the battery. I'll just show you here, fully charged battery, all 4 dots of power on there showing a full charge. We'll snap it in here. I just want to make sure that bit is inside this area so I have no worries about grabbing or whatever. The batteries are rubberized here so I can sit it here without it falling over or sliding around. So we'll get a stopwatch going and let's see how long this takes to die. And we'll stop it there. 27 minutes and 13 seconds. But that is no load. I would like to think that this time would probably be, or not probably, definitely be a lot less when you're actually using the router with a load on it. Maybe 2/3 of what this is. But either way, with no load and the draw of the router motor itself, this thing lasted for 27 minutes. The motor is cool to the touch. I'll just shut that off just in case. But it's cool to the touch after running for almost a full half an hour. The battery is cool. The motor is cool. I think that's pretty good for a battery operated tool. So not too bad. But how does it perform? How does it work? Let's get a fresh battery in here and I'll just run a 1/4" round over and well, I'll show you how it performs. Well, through maple, not a problem there. Cutting that profile, it's a clean edge, it's a sharp edge. It didn't bog down while cutting. You know what, guys? The performance of this thing, well, it's pretty neat. And there you have it. The Ridgid brushless 18-volt battery router. Guys, I have to be honest and say that when I first purchased this, I was a little concerned about the fact that it's a battery. Routers are traditionally, AC voltage. You plug them in and away they go. So A battery tool, as we've seen in so many, can be quite a bit less, and usually is quite a bit less than one that plugs into the wall. Because of that, sometimes their performance suffers. But I can honestly say that that is not the case with this unit. This thing performs just fantastically. No bogging down. The battery life is good, so the motor doesn't eat it up. The fact that it's a DC motor with the battery means that it has a ton of torque. So it's constant drive, it's constant power, and that really helps when you're using it, whether you're using it for a template or whether you're using it for edge routing or maybe flush trimming when it comes to placing laminate on boards and that sort of thing. This thing performs just as well as what my electric trim router performs. Will it replace a large handheld with your half-inch collet, your quarter-inch collet? Probably not. I don't think any trim router will replace your traditional fixed base or plunge base routers. But this is definitely a contender, and this is definitely one that you may want to look into if you already have 18-volt Ridgid tools. I have not found this, as I said earlier, I have not found this in a kit where it comes with the battery and charger as well. And it's a shame because it really is a capable tool, and I think that there's a lot of people that could be missing out on it because they don't already have the batteries. Buying the batteries and the charger really tacks on the price of this thing. Tool in itself, as far as the price, just tool only, it's not a cheap unit. And I'm not going to quote the price because it may be different in your area, but it's not a cheap unit, but sometimes you get what you pay for. Guys, as far as how I rate this router on overall performance, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. And the one thing that really draws back from me from giving it a great, fantastic score, and I kind of teeter between 8 and 9, the one big one is the power switch, how it's quite awkward for a left-handed person to use. In order to turn it on, I have to flip this upside down and click it this way instead of just turning it on. It may be a small point, but does it affect the performance of the router? Absolutely not. Variable speed works great. Everything about this router I'm pleased with. I have not had any problems other than that power switch. So, would I recommend it? Yeah, most likely, or most definitely rather, I would. I've had a lot of fun with it. Low vibrations, just a fantastic tool to use. Guys, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the bell so that you don't miss notifications of the show. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. And as well, guys, honestly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another Alternative Tuesdays.